Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Joining me for the first time is Elizabeth Green. Elizabeth, I've been seeing her work around for a long time now. Really been enjoying her posts. It's a shame that I haven't brought on to the show before, but it's better late than never. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. And do you want to give the audience a bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm, first off, super stoked. I've been listening to you for a while, so I appreciate the love on stuff I'm posting. It's always nice to hear what I'm posting isn't complete hogwash, so that's great. So my name is Elizabeth Green. I'm one of the co-founders of Amazon ad agency called Jungler. So we focus on, high or low 7 figures who are looking to scale into the 8 figures and need help with their Amazon ads to do so.
Today we're going to talk about possible stuff, ideas for next year. We were chatting off call, weren't we? We were seeing where PPC was going, and we were talking about A9 and some of the things, the subjects there. So let's start with you. Where do you think things are going for next year? And then we'll cover some of the other topics as well.
Yeah. So I am super excited about a lot of the stuff they're doing, and also kind of discouraged on a lot of things that they're doing. Both. So the really exciting things that I'm loving is more access to data, more access to specific things that you used to have to use software for. More specifically, so the budget rules have been interesting. They recently rolled out native day parting rules. Now, I'm not super happy with sort of the way that they function, or what I'm going to call the lack of an easy adjustable interface and visibility into your rules that are set up. I actually just put a post out today on that. They're also deeply invested in building out their bulk file capabilities and their reporting, and I'm really enjoying that. So it seems like they're, in a lot of ways, and I've talked to a lot of the internal teams about kind of things that they're developing, or they'll reach out to ask questions. I'm sure they do for you all as well. Is they're really intent to say, how can we make ads more user friendly, have more capabilities, and you not have to, again, go to other external tools to be able to leverage a lot of the exciting updates that they're bringing out. Love that. Super stoked about that. Also, they're sort of wanting to make it a lot easier for brands to utilize and leverage creatives. So with the rollout of, their AI image developer, also the rollouts of having sponsored display, going to brand pages. So we saw a lot, I want to say the beginning of this year, and I expect that to continue, a lot of focus on trying to make things a little bit more accessible, and then wanting to expand the capabilities of people to really build brands within the Amazon platform, because traditionally it was like, small segmented things. A lot of the talk and the discomfort was like, I don't own the shopper, I can't really build a brand, how am I supposed to gain recognition here? So I think it was like in 2022, and definitely carried on to 2023, there was a real focus of build a brand on Amazon, and we're trying, with posts and all the other updates that they have. That's been really good. The things that I'm not very thrilled about is a lot of the updates that in essence just kind of randomly increase spend on the platform. So the expansion of like the search triggers that happen with some of their existing match types, or their change and then elected to, just like automatically switch the settings and say like the advertising spend caps, where they can up to 100% increase the budgets, or their random updates to, I think it's sponsored brand ads, which now have a dynamic up and down increase to them. Those kind of things that give us less control over our ad spend, and sort of like random increases. I think most of my displeasure with these updates has been the lack of transparency or communication with the updates, more than maybe the updates themselves, because that's definitely where Google ads are going. We don't dabble in Google ads, but I do know some people on LinkedIn or see the posts, and there's a lot of like automation focused, less manual controls, more automated controls that are happening in Google. And so that's kind of a usual evolution of a lot of ad platforms. So I'm assuming that that's kind of what's going to happen. I guess my hope as Amazon goes forward into 2024 is that they will focus more on educating, consumers of their ad platform as to more transparency with updates, instead of us randomly finding things in search term reports and then like freaking out about it.
Yeah. I mean, on my side, this is just a theory, but just been thinking a lot more about relevance and the impact on PPC over the next couple of years and the advent of AI and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so if I set out the concept, because it's going to be when we break this down. So let me give an example. So we've had the algorithm is evolutional, right? So it'll go through a series of stages, and there's some holes in the black box that we can't fill, but based on papers, etc., etc. So if I give you an example, so you've got the customer, and you've got the Amazon seller or the brand, and then you've got A9 in the middle, just to simplify things. And so when we look at the customer, we're looking for the conversion, right? We want to please the customer, but we're looking for a conversion. A lot of people, and we still are, a lot of people are still working on the focus of the main thing is finding relevant keywords, or some people don't actually use relevant keywords. They just use high search volume and call them relevant keywords, but that's a conversation for another day. Is relevant keywords that index. That's pretty much part of the end goal is want a conversion. Yeah. I mean, there's other things. I'm zooming out at 10,000 feet. And then you got Amazon. Amazon, what they care about is providing the most relevant search results as possible. So over the years, there has been an evolution of the match type. So the foundation of the web is basically what's called lexical matching, where single words are then indexed for layman's terms, right? And then there's the limitations for spelling mistakes, et cetera, right? And then you had the advent of semantic matching, which corrects that, and it gives you based on the contextual side. And now you've got BERT, which is in essence, BERT helps understand language a bit more like humans, right? So it's not just about the individual words, but also the context, the way they use. So imagine you've got lexical, which is limited, then you've got semantic, and then BERT puts it all on steroids. So going back to the theory again. Now, if you look at search results page now, they're polluted with ads. Okay? So they're polluted with ads. They spent all this time and technology through evolution to deliver the best search results possible organically, which they're pushed down below the fold in most cases. True? Okay. So they're in full control of that. And the reason they're doing it is because when we're hacking the shit out of the listings to put as many keywords in there as possible, that to Amazon is polluting the search results because our determinant of relevance is different to what the algorithm is and what the algorithm wants to present to the customer and what the customer wants to see, because there's the process of tapping as many search terms as possible to index. Okay. So with that in mind, let's just hold that theory there. With that in mind, from the science literature, you've got semantic and BERT actually scans the whole listing. So it doesn't matter if the keywords are indexed or not. And then if you look at semantic and BERT, they're going to give you variants, contextual variants on that search term. So with that in mind, when everyone is setting up their PPC campaigns, yes, there are going to be some limitations to the relevance and stuff, but Amazon's not necessarily got that level of control in terms of when we're targeting or anyone's targeting with PPC. So the page is full of ads and it's got all the organic results. At some point, they've got to look at some sort of shift there, because the relevance is in the eye of the beholder who are paying and setting up these campaigns. Yes, there's category limitations and stuff on certain search term. Yes, you're going to get a problem where you haven't got historic conversion rate. Therefore, you might not actually go into the ad auction. But putting all that aside, let's imagine this. So on one side, you've got organic, which is more control over the relevancy. And then on the other side, you've got PPC ads, which is set up by third-party people that are paying to use the platform, and it's polluted throughout the pages. So what you've got there, you haven't got the same level of sophistication in terms of relevance, because you've got organic on one side and paid search on the other.
Yeah, so your school of thought, and I guess I can see the logic there, and I appreciate you sharing, because from my perspective, because as an agency, we super focus on relevancy. Like that is our first, second, and third rule. And so when we're evaluating search terms, that, to my point, the expansion of the match types has triggered, it's in its very early stages. And so there's some things that we'll look at and we're like, I don't know. And so it feels like we're making better decisions than the, whatever search algorithm that they've put in the ads, not necessarily the general,
I'm not saying
algorithm
anyone's right or wrong. What I'm saying is, on one side, they've developed the algorithm over time to refine it to give better searches, because back in the day, you could, basically put whatever keywords that you want in a listing to a certain degree, right? And then they will show up in search results, but they wouldn't necessarily be relevant for the customer. They're relevant for the brand who wants to use those keywords because of the search volume, search frequency rank and stuff like that. Maybe not so much search frequency rank, but definitely search volume, because we're going back in time now, right? And so what you've got is, you've got on one side the evolution of how search is improved for the results. We can still question results. I'm not saying it's 100% right, but the intention behind it, intention behind it on their side, lexical, semantic, and then into BERT, is to craft the most relevant as possible. But where does the control level come from all the ads on the page? So if half the page, almost, not half, but a lot of ads on the page.
I don't know, probably about. Probably just about.
But you know where I'm coming from. So is there going to be a point where there is a shift to increase the relevance, because they don't care where the conversion comes from, as long as they get the conversion? It could be you, me, person down the road. They don't care. They're going to get the conversion anyway, based on being as relevant as possible for the customer. So I'm not sure, but are we going to see a shift there? Because it's going to annoy customers if they're not getting the relevant results back. If they're handling certain ways with listings with relevance in terms of semantic and BERT, what are they going to be doing in terms of ads? Yes, there's some caps, as I said, category. There's certain keywords that you're not going to be able to bid on or get 0 impressions. But that is a small hill to climb compared to everyone is choosing what they're targeting, what they're going after, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're right or wrong, but they're in more control in the driving seat because they're paying for these ads. But where do you streamline it? That's where I'm coming from. I think they might see a shift there and the limitations.
No, I can see the argument for what you're saying. And honestly, I'm seeing the same thing, to your point of, different targeting with search terms that are triggered through match types that were no longer triggered before, or the changes in them being able to put things dynamically. And actually, I really appreciate this perspective in the conversation. It's actually opened my mind, because, to be honest, a lot of cynics, and to be honest, myself included sometimes, and again, I think where my annoyance has come has been the lack of notification of these updates. I think that's where I've been really maybe pushed more into the cynical camp of Amazon's just trying to increase their ad spend revenue. Because with a lot of these updates, what has happened is there's just been increases in the ad spend. So the cynic in you goes, is this supposed to be self-serving? But I love the addition and the expansion of thought in that the intent might not necessarily at the highest levels be to, let's just get more revenue from our ad channel. To your point, and I would agree with it, there's a lot of search pages where you'll go and you'll look at, the products being advertised, and you're like, that it doesn't really make sense. Or, maybe I've searched 3 different search pages and this product keeps coming up and I have no interest in this product in relation to this search page. It doesn't make any sense. And so you're saying that because they've definitely, I think, done a very good job in crafting a search algorithm and constantly updating it. I mean, they want the best customer experience. It's very explicit. They want fast shipping and good customer experience where someone can go and find anything. And to your point of serving up relevancy, when they're focused on having you be able to find anything, you need to have, because there's millions of products on Amazon, a ton. So for them to shift through all of the entire catalog and then serve up exactly what someone is looking for, that's no easy feat. And I think oftentimes we don't give the algorithm as much credit as it is. Like that's a huge core piece of Amazon's consumer experience. And so I like the thought. And again, looking at the updates that I'm seeing, I think I would agree with that. And then that's possibly Amazon's focus in 2024 is saying, how can we take all of our learnings that we've learned to serve up in just, native organic search, and then start applying that to Amazon advertising. That's going to be interesting because, at some level you can't just say, hey, give us your ad spend and we'll figure out how to deploy it. Like, I don't think there would be a lot of brands who would be happy to invest, a lot of budget into something as black box as that. But at the same time, yeah, there's some people, I mean, you and I, we audit, or your team and, my team audit accounts all the time. And sometimes you're like, why the heck did that get in there? Like, that's why are you guys focused on that? This makes no rational sense to us because we're used to focusing on the relevancy piece because we've seen the results of it. But potentially, and to the point of Amazon focusing on more user-friendly plug-and-play options, having a more automated option that would focus on that relevancy factor, could solve a lot for, say, smaller brands who in the beginning, because they're just unaware of how to even run something, they're not really making good decisions in terms of their targeting.
Yeah. I mean, some of the other things we could kind of cover here as well. I don't know if you've seen it where Amazon has the AI where it gives an option of, it was an option, suggestion of listing changes, which is what's kind of interesting about it, although that was all rejected out of hand because it literally stripped every single keyword out of the listing and just produced very short form junk. What you got to read into that is while we look at them and go, that's a shitty listing and you've gutted us of all our keywords, why would they make those suggestions? They're not trying to drag you underwater. What says to me is that with those suggestions, even though we think it's shit, maybe because of BERT and semantic, there's something in there that we're missing because we're so focused on keywords. Do you understand? So even if you look at some of, some of Amazon basics and stuff, look at their titles, how short they are. Look at the structure of their titles. Obviously, they're following best practices as well. Their bullet points and things like that. They don't optimize them like the rest of search in terms of the Amazon sphere, the Amazon bubble that we're in, the FBA community. They don't optimize their listings that way. Obviously, they're going to give parity to their own listings and stick them at the top. We've seen that numerous times. But it's interesting how they looked at, and it's like, what can you learn from this? Because I run a load of those listings through through sentiment tools. So understands to try and gauge the human behavior and emotion and stuff. And all of them come out with scores that I looked at over 90. But then if I took another load of listings that were traditionally optimized from our community, in that same structure, long titles, making use of every character in the bullet points, blah, blah, blah. And then you're seeing sentiment scores of 0.15 because they work on a 0.00 up to 99. And it's interesting to look at the sentiment scores on those compared to the Amazon listings. And I think we're going to see a shift in that way as well. Copywriting is going to be making a shift. Obviously, there's plenty of tools out there to do it with AI. But it'd just be interesting to see this shift. By looking at their suggestions, why are they stripping all the keywords out and suggesting that way? Why? That's the question. Either it's a fucked up algorithm, it's a piece of shit, or there's something we're missing, that there's a missing link there. Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense because whenever they do something, it is with the intention of improvement. They're never rolling out updates as much as sometimes it seems they roll them out half baked. There's never an update that they run and you're like, wow, let's crap on all the we're not trying to crap on user experience or even seller experience. I mean, they need sellers on their platform to make the whole ship run. So it's not like the intent is ever there. I am in 2024 super excited to see how Amazon in particular, because that's our space, but, other tools or just in life in general, we start incorporating AI into things that we've already been doing. I think it's going to be, we talked about LinkedIn and I'm like, the absolute flood of terrible comments on posts that are so obviously written, like someone threw the post into ChatGPT and said, hey, write me a comment here, is ridiculous. And with AI, the quality of the output is the quality of the input. And we're all still trying to figure out the input, figure out how to use it. And Amazon is way more sophisticated than us sitting away typing at, ChatGPT prompts. So I'm sure they got a lot of bright minds figuring out. But in the beginning, when you're trying to figure it out, it's not all that great. I think we've all gone in and tested, maybe Claude or ChatGPT or other one, Google AIs, and you write up something in there and output something. You're like, this is garbage. Why does anybody use AI? And then you get a little bit more sophisticated and you figure out how to talk with it. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I couldn't believe it did this for me. And it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of trial. It's a lot of tests. It's a lot of error. And to the point of categorizing and relevancy and maybe not needing keywords to trigger anymore, AI can analyze images, which is huge. And so, there's a lot of talk when it comes to listing optimization and how important images are to the listings and to the shopper experience. And I myself am completely guilty of this. Like, I'll shop images. I barely, I'll overview the A+ content. When I go to shop, I look at the images, I scroll through the images, and I'm right down into the reviews. That's my shop method. And so with the ability of potentially some sort of algorithm that's not only going to scan the listing content, and to your point, the semantics and understanding shopper intent, but also incorporating an understanding of the product based on all of the content on the page, which could potentially include the images, I think that is huge and also goes a really long way to your point of serving up good products to people who are searching for those specific things. So it's like in the short term, we're kind of like, what the heck is going on? This seems terrible. But like in the long term, and maybe even a couple years from now, maybe this year, things are moving so fast. I think just as consumers, our experiences with platforms are going to be like micro specific at a massive scale that we haven't ever seen before. And me as a shopper, I'm super lazy. I would prefer to voice text something and just be like, I need this thing. Anything that can cut down on my brain power and processing power, I am all for. So I think that's where, there's a whole thing of, some people who like to do it for themselves and they hate the automated aspect. I'm fine with being lazy as long as.
Yeah. You mentioned another thing. I think attributes is another key thing that is underutilized and what people don't always realize. I've done a post on the basically breaking down product images and how Amazon the algorithm scans the image so it can pick out a person's face, the name of the brand on the bottle. I've done a post on it and explained a bit more. What's interesting about this, and we've got to be a bit careful of, often depend if you've got multi parts to your product. Yeah. Say, for an instance, I used a tool the other day to look at the attribute for the image. And so with this attribute, this was a pencil case. So it should be pencil underscore case, but it showed first underscore aid, as in a first aid kit. Now, if you're looking at these attributes, which most people wouldn't be thinking about in terms of the image, a couple of things to look at. One, if you've got the wrong attribute, it's going to look at the attributes in the listing. Okay. And when it cross references, that image isn't going to match the product. So there's going to call a problem there in terms of correlation of relevance. So that's one thing that people got fixed. The second part of it, you see a lot of products where they lay out in the image and they take up every pixel of all the elements of that product. Mm-hmm. When that happens as well, when it scans the images, it might scan, the image and understand that part of the product over here, the main part of the product, but all the accessories of the product, they can't scan it and they don't understand it. And if that attribute is wrong for the main product, that's going to have impact as well in terms of regulating from what's in the listing and the impact on the algorithm. It might only be subtle, but you want your image attributes to match the attributes of the listing. So when it cross-references, it understands it's correct for relevance. So I think we're going to see a shift away if people start to optimize and split test and check their image attributes are correct. And two, have their images less populated, not letting lay out everything in the image so they're almost overlapping each other. Because when the algorithms scan, they can't pull out what they are. They can see a person's face. They can see the main product. But if you're not leaving pixel space around it, it can actually confuse it as well because it's scanning through. And without that, it might come up with an alternative attribute that is not going to be relevant. Therefore, it's going to impact you in terms of your search terms and everything in your listing and your overall relevance for the listing.
I like that. I think that that's super interesting. And with the, sort of talk about the ad algorithms focusing more on relevancy, the relevancy is going to come and the understanding is going to come from the listing. So you're saying in the future, not only do listing optimization and ads work hand in hand from a conversion rate perspective, because that's a huge thing. I mean, we just talked about like if the product is not well presented, there is no conversion rates on the product, you're not going to get good ad performance. But it's not only from a conversion rate perspective, but also from, to your point, the relevancy or the understanding of the listing that is then also going to feed in potentially back into the ad algorithm. So the whole thing not only works in synergy from a conversion rate perspective, but also from an, indexing and algorithmic understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to cover before we go?
No, I think this is super interesting. I mean, I think for me, key takeaways from this is going back to focusing on what we've always understood. For anyone who's done this a while, understands they need to focus on, which is good customer experience and thoroughly building out listings to help, describe the product. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a listing, especially for like a furniture or something that it's really important that you really understand the product and where it fits. And like, there's no dimensions on the listing or there's no it's still focusing on how can I have a good consumer experience, not just, again, to drive conversions, but help them understand the product better.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. What's the best way that people can reach you?
Yeah. So the best way, if you want to get in contact with us, potentially to discuss services, it would be the website, which is jungler.com. If you just want to follow me, see what's up, best platform to do that on is definitely going to be LinkedIn. Working to build up the YouTube, but at this point, LinkedIn's probably where I put out the most content.
Thanks, Liz, for joining us today. Guys, thank you for joining us. Hope most of you have had a good Q4. By the time this recording goes out, we'll probably just land in just before the new year. So I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year and I hope you all smash it in 2024. I'll be back. So will Adam and so will Sharon as well. I should be speaking to her this week. So hopefully we'll have her back for the new year, as obviously there's been a lot going on in Israel. So take care of yourself and your family. Much love. And I'll see you again in the new year.